Welcome to the Point of Darkness.
The night was so dark it felt as if nothing existed beyond the airport windows. No city, no roads, no lights, only endless blackness swallowing the rain. The airport moved with its usual rhythm. Announcements, footsteps, the squeaking wheels of suitcases. But near gate C-17, the atmosphere felt wrong. People spoke quietly. Some stared nervously at the departure board where one line blinked over and over. Flight 217 boarding. Artem hated night flights. He sat near the window holding his ticket tightly in his hands. He was 28 years old, and the last few months of his life had been unbearable. Since his mother died, he barely slept anymore. Every night he had the same dream. A long empty airplane corridor, and a voice whispering his name. Tonight he had to fly overseas for work, and for some reason, the moment he saw the flight number, a terrible feeling settled deep inside him, like he had seen this plane before. Even though that was impossible, passengers of Flight 217, boarding has begun. The speaker's voice sounded distorted. People stood and moved toward the gate. Among them Artem noticed an old man in a long gray coat. The old man wasn't moving. He simply stared at the airplane outside. As Artem walked past him, the old man quietly said, "Do not fall asleep during the flight." Artem stopped. "Excuse me." The old man slowly turned his head. His eyes were cloudy white. "No matter what you hear, do not open the door at the back of the plane." Before Artem could ask anything else, the old man turned away. Minutes later the passengers boarded. The aircraft looked old to old inside. The cabin smelled of metal and dampness. The lights flickered weakly overhead. The flight attendants smiled, but their smiles looked forced. "Welcome aboard Flight 217. One of the attendants looked directly into Artem's eyes. "If you hear knocking after midnight, do not answer it." Artem laughed nervously. Is this some kind of joke? But she had already walked away. The plane began to move. Rain slammed against the windows. When the engines roared, a sudden pressure filled Artem's ears. Then he felt something strange. It felt like someone was breathing directly behind his neck. He turned quickly. Nothing. Only the dark aisle. The plane lifted into the storm. The first 2 hours passed normally. Passengers watched movies. Some slept. Others read quietly. Then at exactly 12:17 a.m., the cabin lights flickered. Once. Twice. Then everything went black. For several seconds the airplane drowned in total darkness. People started murmuring. A baby cried somewhere nearby. Whispers spread through the cabin. Then suddenly knock. Someone was knocking on the rear cabin door. Slowly. Rhythmically. A cold wave ran down Artem's spine. The flight attendants were gone. And strangely, nobody else seemed to notice the sound. Knock. A man across the aisle looked up. "Do you hear that?" Nobody answered. The woman beside him kept staring at her tablet as if nothing was happening. But her screen was black. And reflected in it was a face, not hers. Something stood directly behind her. Artem blinked. The reflection vanished. The plane shook violently. The lights returned. Everything looked normal again, except for one thing. Seat 18C. It was no longer empty. A tall man dressed in black now sat there. His face hidden in shadow. Artem was certain the seat had been empty during boarding. The man slowly turned his head and smiled, too wide. Then the lights died again. This time for much longer. Heavy turbulence hit the aircraft. Luggage fell from overhead compartments. People screamed. Somewhere near the front came a horrible cracking sound, like bones breaking. Then the pilot's voice echoed through the speakers. "Ladies and gentlemen." Static swallowed the words. "Do not look outside the windows." The transmission ended, but it was already too late. Several passengers had looked, and immediately began screaming. There was no sky outside. No clouds. No stars. Nothing. Only endless darkness. And something moving within it. Something enormous. Long arms crawled beside the aircraft. Artem heard a woman whisper from several rows ahead, "It found us again." Then she started laughing. Loud. Hysterical. Until suddenly she stopped. When the lights flickered again, her head was gone. Only her body remained strapped to the seat. Chaos exploded through the cabin. People tried to run. Some prayed. Others screamed uncontrollably. But the worst part was this. Passengers began disappearing right in front of everyone. As if reality itself was erasing them. One man stood from his seat, took a single step and vanished into darkness. Only blood remained. Artem struggled to breathe. His mind felt broken. Then he remembered the old man's warning. "Do not open the door at the back of the plane." But now crying came from behind that door. A child crying, soft, desperate, and every time the plane shook, the crying sounded closer. Boom. Something slammed into the aircraft from outside. Cracks spread across the windows. Passengers screamed louder. Then Artem saw one of the flight attendants standing motionless in the aisle. Her neck was snapped. Her head hung at an impossible angle, but she was still smiling. "Do not open the door," she whispered. Then she slowly walked toward the rear cabin, toward the knocking, knock, knock. Then the rear door slowly began opening by itself. Black smoke poured into the cabin. The smell of rot filled the air instantly. People started choking. Inside the doorway was a corridor, but the plane could not possibly be that long. The corridor stretched endlessly into darkness, and something stood inside it, a tall figure. Far too tall to be human. Its arms touched the floor. Its glowing white eyes locked onto Artem. Then it spoke, using his mother's voice. "Why didn't you come say goodbye?" Artem froze. That voice, it was exactly hers, every detail. "Artem." The creature stepped forward. Bones cracked inside its body. "You left me alone." Artem backed away, but the owl behind him was gone. The plane had changed. Seats were rusted. Black stains covered the ceiling. And the passengers, they were no longer human. They sat motionless with pale skin and empty eyes. Like corpses. The man from seat 18C slowly stood up. Now Artem could finally see his face. Or rather the absence of one. Only a dark hole remained. And from inside came hundreds of whispering voices. "Stay with us." The airplane tilted sharply. Oxygen masks dropped from above. Warning alarm screamed. But nobody moved anymore. Nobody except Artem. He ran. Through the cabin. Through the flashing lights. Through the screams. Behind him came footsteps. Fast. Inhuman. He reached the cockpit. The door was open. No pilots. Only the autopilot controls glowing in darkness. And strange coordinates. Altitude. Unknown. Location. Unknown. Time. 017. Always 017. The clock never moved. The plane was no longer flying. It was trapped, somewhere between worlds. Behind him came his mother's voice again. "Artem." He slowly turned. The creature filled the aisle now. Its mouth opened impossibly wide. Inside were human hands, hundreds of hands reaching outward. "You must stay." The plane suddenly began falling. Everything shook violently. Red emergency lights flooded the cabin. Artem screamed. Then he saw the emergency exit hatch. He ran toward it. The creature's icy hands grabbed his shoulder. Pain shot through his body. But Artem pulled the lever. The hatch exploded open. Wind roared into the cabin. The darkness outside seemed alive. The creature screamed. Not with a human voice. Artem didn't think. He jumped and fell for a very long time. Then silence. He opened his eyes. The airport. The same. Gate. C-17. People sat calmly around him as if nothing had happened. The departure board blinked. Flight 217. Boarding. Artem breathed heavily. Was it a dream? A nightmare? Then he looked at his shoulder. A black handprint marked his skin. Passengers of Flight 217. He slowly raised his head. The old man sat beside the window again. This time he was smiling. "I told you not to sleep." The airport lights flickered once. Then every person in the terminal slowly turned toward Artem and smiled. The same impossibly wide smile. As the man from seat 18C.
Friends, thank you for watching to the end. If you don't mind, please support me with a like and a subscription. I'll see this and will make more and better videos. Thank you for your attention.